Prime Minister will bring up whatever he would like to bring up, as is true of any bilateral meeting. We expect the President during the meeting to highlight the strong and deep partnership between the United States and Canada as neighbors, friends, and NATO allies, that they will discuss issues of mutual interest from COVID-19 to climate change and the economic ties that bind our countries, as well as the deep people-to-people bonds we share. And after the conclusion of the meeting, I'm sure we'll have a readout of what was discussed and communicated during his first bilateral meeting.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki there gave a preview of tomorrow's meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The high-stakes meeting is Biden's first bilateral with a foreign leader. The agenda includes plans to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. Bruce Heyman was the U.S. ambassador to Canada from 2014 to 2017. He joins us now from Chicago. Hi, Ambassador. Good to see you as always.
Always good to see you, Vashi.
Before we get into what we can expect and what might be discussed, I just wanted to lean on your experience a little bit in planning these types of meetings, because you were involved, different occupant of the White House at the time, but you've been involved in it. What is it? I'm hearing that it starts around 3:30. It's at least a few hours long. Is that typical? What might you, how do these things come together, and what kind of planning is involved?
So let's just go back a minute. I was very much involved in the first meeting between then President Obama and Prime Minister Trudeau. And I will tell you, if you've ever wondered what happens at that Ottawa embassy, the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa, I'll tell you, they're burning the midnight oil. Mm-hmm. They're all working on briefing documents that are pushed through to the Canada desk at the State Department and the White House, the various departments of the U.S. government as well. The transition team already, you should assume they've been working hard on understanding Canada-U.S. Issues and opportunities. And all of this is coming together for a substantive meeting. There will be niceties. There will be great gestures of friendship. But beyond that, it's about time. We're rolling up the sleeves. And as the president said last week at the Munich Security Summit and the G7 meeting, America's back. But by just saying it, that's only part of the way. This is a demonstration of that. And so we're going to walk the talk, and we're going to look for ways in which we can collaborate with Canada, work together on COVID, on trade, on climate, on geopolitical challenges that happen around the world, on NATO, on WHO, on all of these things. The challenge for the Canada-U.S. meeting is not what we're going to talk about. It's that there's only a limited amount of time, and the relationship is so deep that some number of things will not be able to get discussed because just of the sheer limited amount of time. But this is an important meeting, and it's real work. And it's a demonstration of the affection that I know the president has for Canada people, but also the importance the administration places on the partnership.
Let me get your take on a couple of things that in my discussions with people surrounding the Prime Minister and who might be involved in this meeting will be a priority. Definitely trade, as you mentioned, and more specifically, getting some more details on what Buy America could look like. The White House press secretary said today there wouldn't be any changes immediately preceding the meeting. It's not like they're going to announce Canada's exempt from everything. But from your vantage point, how much of an opportunity is this for the federal government here to make the case that Canada should be and to use some of the space available to focus on that?
I think it's an important opportunity for the Canadian government to voice all the things that are deeply important to them. And they'll use this platform. And look, I know some number of people within the Canadian government and have experienced these meetings with them previously. They're not shy about bringing up these issues. So I think the Canadians, should have some confidence that their government will bring up the issues that are important. But we also can't use this as just a session of going back and forth about talking about just, issues where we have concern, but also where we can work together to do things together, to build on things together. And I think that's going to be a very important part of the conversation and the launching point for so many of the ministers and the cabinet level secretaries to have a then develop a personal relationship and work together to do things.
Certainly two of those areas we've seen both the Biden administration highlight and the federal government here: climate change, which, policies seem to be more aligned than they have been in the past, and then COVID-19. If I could focus on the latter for my final question for you, Ambassador Heyman, do you think there is the possibility that there could be a much more concerted approach, a much more analogous approach by the two governments when it comes to COVID-19 that could result, let's say, looking 6 months or more into the future, to a loosening of restrictions at the border at a faster rate than this might have happened a year ago? That kind of thing. Like, do you think discussions might be geared in that direction?
I hope so. From my perspective and the work that we had done while I was at the embassy serving as ambassador, it is clear that this, what some people call non-essential travel, if you're a restaurateur, if you're a hotelier, if you run entertainment properties in Canada or the United States, this is essential travel. So this will feed business opportunities, put people back to work. We've got to get the border back open. But the only way to do that is to get confidence in the virus and squash that thing and get the vaccine distributed. So there's work to do up front, but we can already start focusing on the back end of this. And I hope that that's part of the conversation.
Okay, Ambassador Heyman, I'll leave this conversation there. I do appreciate it, as always. Thanks for sharing your insights. Bruce Heyman was U.S. Ambassador to Canada from 2014 to 2017. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is U.S. President Joe Biden's first official meeting with a foreign leader. The two are expected to discuss how to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, detained in China. Also on the agenda, President Biden's Buy American policy. In January, he signed an executive order strengthening those rules. Earlier today, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked if Canada would get an exemption. Here's what she said.
He signed an executive order. We're, of course, evaluating procurement components of that, but no changes anticipated. Of course, the Prime Minister will bring up whatever he would like to bring up.
Gary Dewar was Canada's ambassador to the U.S. from 2009 to 2016. He's with us from Winnipeg. Mr. Dewar, good to see you as always. Thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you, Bassy, for having me on.
We were just...
my Joe Biden pick to compete with Bruce Heyman, so
You're ready.
I'm cheating. I'm ready.
So we were just having an interesting conversation with the power panel in what Canadians might expect and how to manage those expectations out of a meeting like tomorrow's. What are your expectations? Do you think there will be real deliverables, or will this be a get to know you in detail for the next few hours kind of thing?
Well, I think it will be more than get to know, but in terms of specific announcements coming out of the meeting, I wouldn't expect those to happen right away. You'll recall that we had to deal with Buy America and Buy American back when Barack Obama was elected president, Joe Biden was vice president. The Recovery Act was passed with Buy American in it, and then we negotiated a waiver after that in Washington for Canada. And so, and on climate change and Paris, the Paris Accord, I'm sure we're going to suggest a broader table discussing both the ability to have greater policies on climate change, but also on energy reliability and clean energy across the border, whether it's hydro as a renewable or some of the traditional energies that are so important to the United States and Canada, for example, with Line 5. And then there'll be other conversations on COVID-19. And we worked in the past with his administration when he was vice president on Ebola and on SARS, on H1N1. So I think we'll also have a good discussion there. There may not be, quote, bumper stickers coming out of the meeting, but it will lay the groundwork to get results and get some really positive results for Canada. So it's very good we're having the meeting.
Let me circle back, Mr. Dewar, to the first item on your list, and that is your experience in negotiating that waiver for Canada when it came to Buy America, and now this government faces a similar challenge. Can you tell us a bit about what that involved from your perspective?
Well, we were very aware that it would have a very negative impact on the supply chain. And we had business in Canada and the United States opposed to the Buy American provision with the Recovery Act at the federal level. We had governors and premiers working on it. We had a lot of support in the Senate and in the Congress, but we also had a lot of support from labor, labor that exists on both sides of the Canadian and American border. The steelworkers represent members in Canada and in the United States, the building trades, the firefighters have members on both sides of the border, machinists, et cetera. And they were very helpful to us. It wasn't the kind of diplomacy as usual. It was really people in the United States proposing a waiver for Canada, and labor was extremely important for that. And Joe Biden has a very good relationship with the hard hats in the United States, and I think they will be helpful for us in the future. You'll also remember that in the NAFTA negotiations, the auto workers helped out with the government, and they were very, very helpful to us in getting good changes on labor and the environment for Canadian citizens, American citizens, and getting an agreement ultimately to get certainty in our trade.
So is it your view that a similar strategy employed now would be effective, meaning not just the conversations that are going to take place during that meeting tomorrow and laying out the case then, but to employ allies in the business world, in the labor world, in the United States to help make that case?
Well, when you look at the Great Lakes states, the answer is yes. When you look at the Great Lakes states that President Biden won, you'll remember that he was traveling through Pennsylvania with the steelworker president that has members in Canada. He was traveling through parts of northern Pennsylvania with the building trades. He had his first major supporter being the president, Harold Schaitberger of the firefighters. So yeah, I would definitely use his friends, our friends, on both sides of the border to try to make sure that jobs aren't lost in Canada that are represented by the unions that also represent members in the United States. And that's a real advantage that Canada has that no other country had. And that's why we're the only country that got a waiver with the federal spending under the former Recovery Act for Buy America.
Based on the political climate, the domestic climate there now, a decade later, do you foresee any unique challenges to securing that waiver again? Like, do you think do you expect the same to happen this time around, or do you think there's a different set of challenges?
No, we've worked with labor before. Ambassador Hellman worked with labor on the NAFTA renegotiations. Minister Freeland worked with labor as well on both sides of the border. We have the template from 2009 and 10 where Canada got the waiver. I think we should discuss it. Why it works on both sides of the border at the meeting tomorrow. I think it will be a productive discussion. The president has got to worry about getting the money passed in the United States first. He's got to land the $1.9 trillion expenditure, and he has to worry about that as the president of the United States. But in the long run, it makes sense to have a waiver for Canada, and it makes sense for workers on both sides of the border not to be unemployed because of a bad decision that can be taken in either Ottawa or Washington.
Okay, Mr. Dewar, I'll leave it there. Appreciate you sharing your insights with us as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Vassie. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Gary Dewar was, of course, a Canadian ambassador to the United States from 2009 to 2016. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.